Chapter 1. The Quiet Before the Bow. You wake up before the rooster, before the city, before the ink of night has fully dried on the paper walls. The silence is cold but familiar. It's not the kind of silence that comforts. It's the kind that leans over your shoulder and watches what you do next. You lie still for a moment longer, listening, not to sounds, to the absence of them. No footsteps, no movement in the house. Just the faint groan of ancient wood adjusting to its own tired weight. Your futon creaks softly beneath you, stuffed straw and damp fabric, flattened by too many years of obedience. The floor beneath it is always slightly uneven. One corner dips toward the earth, like even the floor is bowing. Like everything here remembers its place, including you. You rise without sound, not because you're proud of how silent you've become, but because the house punishes noise. You once dropped a cup, not broke it, just dropped it. It didn't even shatter, but the silence that followed was worse than any punishment, worse than the way your master looked at you, as if you were a shoe, a worn thread, a ripple in still water, something to be corrected. That was 3 years ago, or maybe 4. In this house, time doesn't pass. It watches, like the sword. You put on your inner robe with one motion, then the outer, then your slippers, their soles polished thin from your own steps. You never wash them. It would be disrespectful to erase the wear. The scuff marks are like scars, reminders of where you've been allowed to walk. You walk the length of the corridor by memory. There's no lantern, no candle, only the faintest glow of a world that hasn't woken yet. The tatami mats whisper under your steps. The paper walls breathe with the wind outside. And then you see it. The alcove. The tokonoma, where the sword rests. It is not displayed like a weapon. It lies as if asleep, wrapped in silk, framed by a scroll of calligraphy that reads, "In stillness, the blade sharpens itself." You kneel, not quickly, not slowly, just correctly, and you bow. Your forehead does not touch the floor. That is reserved for apologies. This is only reverence. The sword is awake before you are. Even in its sheath, it hums faintly, not with sound, but with presence. You untie the cloth, fold it carefully, and begin the ritual of cleaning. Not like you clean the floors, not like you clean the chamber pots. This is something else. This is sacred. You hold the blade in both hands, one at the hilt, one at the spine, never the edge. You remember what happened to the last boy who touched the edge. His finger came away clean. Then the blood came, fast, hot. He tried to hide it in his sleeve. But the master saw. Of course he saw. The boy was sent away. No one asked where, and no one ever used his name again. Now you use the uchiko, the powder ball filled with ground stone and metal. You tap it gently along the length of the blade, and the powder falls like ash. It absorbs old oil, old breath, old sins. Then you wipe it, slowly, with soft rice paper, always away from yourself. You repeat the motion, again and again, until the steel stops looking like a blade and starts looking like a mirror. In it, you see your face, your eyes, too still for your age. No emotion. That's what they taught you. Emotion is noise. Emotion is air between the master and the command. You do not exist to feel. You exist to polish and carry and disappear. Footsteps. A creak behind the wall. Not him. One of the maids. The old one. The one who hums while sweeping. The one who has forgotten the importance of silence. She will pay for that someday, but not today. You finish the blade. Return it to its sheath. Wrap it in silk. Place it back on the stand, edge up, hilt to the left. As it has always been, As it must be. You bow again, lower this time, not because the blade demands it, but because something inside you needs to. You rise, knees aching, legs half asleep. The house is beginning to stir. A kettle whispers in the kitchen. The scent of burnt charcoal climbs the air. Someone is setting rice to boil. Your master will wake soon. He will not call for you. He never does. You must appear exactly when he needs you. Not a moment before, not a breath after. He once said, "A servant who waits to be summoned is already late." You haven't spoken aloud in 2 days. No one has noticed. You open the sliding screen between the corridor and the garden. Let in the air. It is cold, colder than yesterday. The first cold that hints at the coming season. The maples have begun to turn, red at the tips, like old blood drying at the edge of a wound. You sweep the stones, one at a time, from left to right, always from left to right. The master taught you that, when you were still new, still wet behind the ears, still calling him sir instead of Dana-sama. You think of your mother sometimes, of the way her hand smelled of persimmon and ash, of how she kissed your forehead once, just once. And then you were here, sold into the household, to pay a debt, to disappear your father's shame. You sweep. The garden begins to wake. A crow calls in the pine. The wind shakes loose a petal from the last chrysanthemum. And then the sound. A single chime, sharp, thin, precise. It comes from the master's chamber. He is awake. You place the broom down, straighten your robe, brush your palms against each other once, not to clean them, but to remember you still exist. Then you walk to the room. You kneel, you bow, and you wait. He will not speak, not yet. He will sit by the window, drinking the tea someone else prepared, and you will be nothing but presence, nothing but stillness. Because in this house, in this city, in this world built of silence and blades and cherry blossoms, your breath is not yours. It belongs to him, to the sword, to the house, and someday, maybe, to yourself. But not yet, not today. Today, you are only a servant, and the blade is clean.
Chapter 2. Tatami and Blood. The smell is the first thing you notice, before you open the door, before you take a breath. Metallic, sweet, but wrong, like a plum rotting in the mouth of someone who's already dead. You don't hesitate. Hesitation is a luxury, and luxuries get people replaced. You slide the door open with steady hands. The chamber beyond is quiet, too quiet. No footsteps, no rustling, just the steady, sullen heartbeat of a house pretending nothing has happened. The light inside is faint, barely filtered through the rice paper screens. It paints everything in gray and ghost, but the stain is unmistakable. Dark, so dark it looks black in this light. It spreads like ink across the tatami. A fan lies broken beside it, the edge curled like a dead moth's wing. You don't ask questions. You don't even think them. Instead, you move. You kneel. You bow. Then you rise and begin your work. There is no body, not anymore. Only the echo of one. They took her already. You don't know who. You don't want to. But someone will need to clean the mess. Someone always does. That someone is you. You retrieve the bucket, the rags, the vinegar. You know exactly where everything is and where it must be returned. Nothing must be out of place. When the tatami is stained with blood, you do not scrub. You press, blot, never rub. The master taught you that himself. Blood does not belong to the floor, he said. It must be lifted as gently as memory. You begin. The rag drinks it slowly, like it doesn't want to, like it knows what this stain means. A servant, probably. Maybe the girl who laughed too loudly last week. Maybe the cook's son who looked too long at the lady's hair. Maybe someone you knew. But in Edo, knowing someone is dangerous. Remembering them, suicidal. So, you forget. You forget the softness of their voice, the way they bowed too deeply, the way they always smelled of burnt rice. You forget how human they seemed. You press the rag again. The tatami absorbs pain better than most people. Still, the stain resists. You fetch the salt. Scatter it over the worst of the blotch. A crude method, yes, but sometimes only the crude ones remain. As you work, you notice the scratches. Near the edge of the stain. Thin, parallel, desperate. Nails? A struggle? You look away. You were never here. Footsteps. Not heavy, not loud, but deliberate. You bow your head low, forehead to floor. You do not look. You never look. A shadow pauses at the threshold, then enters. Not the master, the steward, Sugi-san. His sandals always whisper, never speak. He says nothing, but you hear the pause, the sharp inhale. Then, she spoke without permission. His voice is flat, dry, like a scroll left in the sun too long. You say nothing. You are not being asked. He continues. She asked what happened to the first wife. Another pause. Then, she won't ask again. And he leaves. No footsteps this time, only stillness, only silence. You clean faster now. You pour fresh water into the bucket, change the rag, add rice vinegar. The room smells like death and pickled ghosts. The blood has crept into the seams between the mats. You press harder. The rag reddens, your hands ache. You don't stop, because you know it must be perfect. If even the faintest trace remains, someone will see it, someone will wonder, someone will be punished. And you are not ready to be next. You finish just as the light begins to shift. The sun is up now, not high, but enough to burn through the paper windows and show you the things you tried not to see. Like the faint handprint on the sliding door. Small, smaller than yours. You wipe it, twice, 3 times, until nothing remains. You collect your tools, fold the cloths. One is stained too deep. You bury it under the floorboards behind the kitchen, with the others. The salt you sweep into a pouch. You will scatter it later in the garden. You return the bucket to the storehouse. Wash your hands, dry them on your own robe. And then you bow once more to the now clean floor. Not out of ritual, but apology. Later, when the household gathers for the noon meal, there will be no mention of the girl. No questions, no gossip. Someone will simply serve the tea in her place. And when the master lifts his cup and sips and nods once, the world will go on turning. But tonight, as you fold your futon, you will see her face in the shadows. You will hear her voice in the rustle of the bamboo. You will remember what you're not allowed to, just for a moment. And then you will close your eyes. Because tomorrow, there may be more stains, and the tatami doesn't clean itself. Chapter 3. The Mask of the Household. It begins, as always, with the robes. The ones made of silk so fine they rustle softer than breath. You don't wear them, of course. You hold them. Your arms extended just far enough, hands cupped like altars. The master stands before you, bare-chested, half-shadowed. His shoulders glisten from the morning's rinse. No towel. He dries with stillness. You do not speak. You wait. His eyes are narrow today. Not angry, not calm, just calculating, as if trying to remember something unpleasant, or someone. He nods once. You step forward and begin. The underlayer first, soft linen, neutral color. You hold it open and he steps in, one leg, then the other, like a child stepping into the past. You tie the cords without tugging. Then the dark blue outer robe, with the family man, 3 hawk feathers in a circle, the emblem of a man who once slit an envoy's throat for calling him merchant-born. The man must be perfectly aligned with his spine. You smooth the fabric, careful not to touch him. Touch is not allowed. Only his concubine may touch, and she wears bruises for it. You tie the sash. He adjusts it, then tightens it until his ribs creak. A self-inflicted armor. An exhale that never fully comes. Then the haori jacket. Then the white tabi socks. Then the sandals. It's not clothing. It's a transformation. He becomes someone else in these layers. Or rather, he hides the thing he truly is. You bow deeply. He doesn't look at you. He moves to the mirror. Not the real one, just a polished metal disc, barely wide enough to reflect his jaw. Still, he studies it, as if it might accuse him. The steward arrives. Suji-san. Old, lean, smelling of paper and vinegar. He bows and presents the tray. Letters, a scroll, a coin pouch. The master picks one letter, glances at the seal, frowns, then nods. It is time, he says. The only words he's spoken today. You follow. Not because you're summoned, but because that's what shadows do. The procession begins. 2 guards, the master, Suji-san, you. The streets outside the gate are already humming. Vendors shouting, children laughing. The stink of fish, sweat, and incense climbing the air like ghosts seeking form. The townspeople part as you walk. Some bow, most lower their heads. The sight of a samurai in full form is not an invitation. It's a warning. Your master walks with purpose, as if the stones beneath his sandals belong to him. You stay 3 paces behind. Not 2, not 4. The correct distance is sacred. At the governor's hall, you wait outside. Always outside. Suji enters with him. You kneel in the courtyard. A pine tree leans crooked nearby. You focus on its shape, its balance, how it defies gravity and yet never falls. A guard sneers at you. A low servant. His armor is stained with sake. He doesn't speak, but you feel the weight of his gaze. You keep your eyes low. Time passes. You count breaths. Roughly 2,000. Then the door opens. Your master returns. His jaw is tight. His mouth a thin line. Suji-san looks pale. A meeting then, not a victory. You feel something shift. A thread pulled tighter in the web of the house. At home, the mask comes off. Not the robes. The silence. Your master throws his scabbard against the wall. It strikes with a clatter and a grunt of bamboo. You kneel by the door, still watching with the corner of your eye. He paces. 3 steps, turn. 3 steps. Then he speaks. Not to you. To the room. To the ghosts. They mock me. His voice cracks like thunder without rain. They forget who I am. No reply. He pours sake. Too much. Spill some.
doesn't care. Then silence. Then, they'll remember. That night you are sent to deliver a letter. No seal, no name, just an address in the southern quarter. The door you knock on is carved with crane feathers. A woman opens, older, painted, eyes like knives. She takes the letter without a word. You bow. She bows, but only slightly. Inside, you hear the faint murmur of a biwa, a child crying, a blade being drawn, maybe a knife for cutting eel, maybe not. You walk back through the lantern-lit alleys of Edo. The smells shift from sweat to plum wine to sewage. Your sandals soak in something you don't identify. You do not flinch, because in this city, in this house, in this life built on invisible rules and invisible cuts, flinching is for those with names. And you are just the one who wears no mask, because your face was taken long ago.
Chapter 4. Lessons in Obedience. It happens in the inner garden, where the plum tree bends like an old woman and the pond reflects everything but truth. You are raking gravel into circles, one by one, a motion designed not for the garden, but for the mind. Stillness through repetition, control through surrender. That's what the old monk once said years ago when the master brought you to the temple to learn to kneel. You rake, circle, pause, circle, exhale. The sun is soft today. The stones are warm. And then a sound you've heard before. Not a scream, something quieter, like silk torn in half. You freeze, rake in mid-air, head low. You don't need to turn. The sound comes from behind the shoji screen, the one that separates the servants' garden from the women's wing. Then you hear the second sound, harder, a flat crack, palm against flesh, and a short gasped breath. You lower the rake, because now you are part of it, even without seeing, even without wanting. The paper door slides open, not fully, just enough for you to see her, the girl. Her name is Hana. She's 15, maybe 16, you're not sure. She arrived 4 months ago, daughter of a fisherman, eyes too quick, lips too full of questions. Now she kneels in the doorway, head bowed, cheeks swelling. Behind her stands the lady of the house, the master's wife, tall, graceful, skin like lacquered porcelain, voice like falling needles. She says nothing, only holds the hairbrush in her right hand, the heavy wooden one, a streak of red across its bristles. You look down, deeply, deliberately. You rake a half circle, then stop, because she speaks. Servants do not eavesdrop. The lady's voice, still calm, still elegant, but your ribs tighten. You bow, deeply, so deeply your knees ache. He was watching, she says, weren't you? You say nothing, because nothing is safe, even silence, especially silence. She walks forward, slowly, gracefully, each step a threat wrapped in perfume. I asked you something, she says, or are your ears as dull as your eyes? You keep your gaze on the gravel, but you feel her standing over you, like the sun, but colder. Then comes the third sound, unexpected, a slap, not yours, Hana's, again, a sharp exhale, then silence.
The lady leans closer. You can feel her breath. What do you see when you look at me? A woman? A wife? A prisoner? She chuckles, the kind of sound a blade might make as it slides into silk. You see the mask, but you don't know what's behind it. You dare not answer. You rake. Again, as if that motion could save you. Then she says, "Tell the steward she won't need supper tonight." Meaning Hana. Meaning punishment. Not death, yet, but hunger, isolation, another test of obedience. You bow, rise, walk with perfect posture. To displease the lady is to rot from within, slowly, silently, like a scroll eaten by moisture. That night you pass Hana's chamber. There's no candle, no tray, just breathing, sharp, shaky. She's curled on her side, back to the door, a shape too small to hold so much silence. You hesitate, a moment, then you do something foolish. You leave a rice ball, wrapped in cloth, hidden behind the water basin. You do not knock, you do not speak, you vanish into the dark. Later, as you wash dishes in the rear hall, you hear footsteps, not hers, too heavy. The steward. He doesn't look at you, only drops something beside the basin, a cloth. You unfold it. It's the rice ball, untouched, perfectly intact, but torn, split down the middle, as if someone dissected it. Inside, nothing, no filling, no taste, only the white center, and a message burned into the cloth. Obedience is not kindness. You press the cloth to your chest. You feel your pulse through it, and for the first time in weeks, you feel the weight of your own body, of what it means to exist without choice. You return to your chamber, lie on your back, and stare at the wooden ceiling. It's not quiet anymore. The house has learned your name, and it whispers it, very slowly.
Chapter 5. Paper Walls and Paper Lies. In the house of your master, truth travels differently. Not as words, not as scrolls, but as breath through paper walls. It leaks like steam through rice paper and wood, through the slits between gestures, through doors that close a second too slowly. And you have learned to hear what should not be spoken. Not because you wish to, but because in a house like this, listening is survival. It begins during a rainstorm, one of those late summer downpours that soaks the sandals off your feet and makes the koi in the pond float higher than the stones. You're refilling the master's ink tray. In the study, where he writes those letters no one ever sends. You always suspected the writing isn't for others, but for himself. A way to carve memory into parchment so it cannot follow him in dreams. You kneel. You set the tray. And then the door to the corridor opens. Too quickly. The wife enters. Not the concubine, the wife. She wears a robe the color of wet ash, her face painted too perfectly for this hour. She does not look at you. "Leave us," she says. But it's not addressed to you. It's for someone behind her. And then he appears. You know him, Kuroda, a messenger from the shogunate, an old friend of the master. Too handsome for honesty, too soft-spoken to be harmless. He bows to her, too deeply, too familiar. You are already sliding toward the door, but your hand pauses on the edge of the screen, because something isn't right. Because the lady isn't supposed to meet men alone. Because you've heard whispers of their meetings twice before, once at the iris pond, once near the rear garden. Both times brushed off like wind over silk. Now here they are, behind you, in the room that echoes. You stay, just on the other side of the screen, where the paper wall grows thinner the closer you breathe,
You sent the letter? She says. A pause. Yes, he replies, but it may not be enough. Another pause. Longer. You hear sake being poured. A quiet gasp. Then her voice. If it fails, you will still do it? Silence. Then, even if it costs him everything? Then a whisper you can't quite hear. Then laughter. Soft, wet, not joy, something older. You don't realize you've stopped breathing. You don't realize your hand is trembling until the screen gives a faint tap beneath your nail. The room falls silent. You retreat, 3 steps back, breath hidden behind your teeth. You walk to the outer garden and stand beneath the eaves as rain runs down your sleeves like ink across old letters. That night you return to your chamber. You cannot sleep, not because of what you heard, but because of what it means. A samurai's house is not a house. It is a battlefield with no swords, a shrine with no gods, a body with many mouths and only one liver. Rumors here are the bloodstream, and you, the servant, are expected to cleanse the poison, not absorb it. But the poison is inside you now. You heard the plan, the betrayal. You do not know the full shape of it, but you know the weight. And it's heavier than the blade you polish. The next morning, the lady passes you in the corridor. She does not acknowledge you, but her shoulder brushes yours. Barely, not enough to notice. Except, she has never touched you before. Not in all the years you've served. That night, you find a folded note in your robe, hidden deep in the laundry basket. 5 words, scratched in ink so faint you almost miss them. You heard, stay quiet, live. No name, no signature, just a splinter beneath the skin of your life. The next day, the master summons you. You kneel in the study. He sits by the window, writing. His hand moves slow, heavy. He does not look at you, but his voice is precise. I may travel to Kyoto soon. You bow. If I do not return, he says, you will serve my son. Silence. Then, he is not ready. The ink on his brush pools. But no one is when war comes. You don't speak. He stops writing, looks at you. The first eye contact in days. Have you heard anything? He asks. And in that moment, your body is no longer yours. It is a scroll being read by fire. You bow deeply, hands pressed, voice calm. Only the rain, Dana-sama. He watches, too long, then returns to writing. Good, he says. Loyalty is louder than truth. You bow again, and you leave, with blood pounding in your ears louder than any storm. That night, the rain returns, as if the sky is trying to wash away what you've become. But no paper wall forgets what it has heard. And you no longer know which side of it you stand on.
Chapter 6. A Visitor with No Feet. You wake up before the moon disappears, before the rooster, before the bells of morning prayers drift across the rooftops of Edo, but not before the fear. The air is wrong, too still, too dense, as if the walls are holding their breath. You sit up slowly, not because of a noise, but because of the absence of one. Usually, there's a rustling from the servant wing, a creak from the old beams above the kitchen, the soft dragging of cloth as the steward performs his pre-dawn rounds. But tonight, nothing, just silence. And that feeling, that bone-deep cold that isn't cold,
That weight in the room when you're not alone, even if no one else is there. You light a single oil lamp. The flame flickers harder than it should. You glance at the floor. Your sandals are missing. Strange. You always place them at the door, always aligned. You blink once, then hear it. Footsteps, very faint, soft as ash. Somewhere in the hallway. Not fast, not loud, but wrong. You move to the shoji screen, slide it open half a breath. There's nothing, only the corridor, lit only by moonlight. But the floorboards are wet, dark streaks, like water, but thicker. Your stomach tightens. You step out barefoot. Cold wood greets you. Each board a question your body cannot answer. You follow the wet trail, down the corridor, past the guest room, toward the old wing. No one uses the old wing, not since the death, not since the sun, not since that night. The doors here are warped, the paper yellowed, and the air smells different, mildew, dust, old regret. The wet trail stops before the last door. It's half open. You push gently. The room inside is dark, except for the lantern in the far corner, one you did not light. And in front of the lantern stands a shape, still, white, hair falling over one shoulder, hands folded, and no feet. You don't scream, you don't breathe, you only stare, because the shape turns, slowly, and the face, you recognize it. It's the boy, the master's son, the one who drowned, or so they said, in the garden pond, 3 years ago. But his face is too dry, to hear. His mouth moves, but the voice doesn't come from his mouth. It comes from behind you. Loyalty is not always rewarded. You turn. No one is there. You look back. He is gone. Only the lantern remains, still flickering, still lit. You kneel. You press your hands to the floor. Bow, because there's nothing else to do. You whisper a prayer, half remembered, the one your mother taught you before she gave you to the house. May the forgotten forgive the living. May the still be still. You stand, return to your chamber, close the door, and there, on your mat, are your sandals, dry, clean, aligned. The next morning, you say nothing. You serve tea, polish the blade, bow when spoken to. The household breathes like nothing happened. But at noon, when the master passes you in the hall, he pauses, looks at you, and says, "You entered the west wing." Not a question. You bow low. "It was open, Donna-sama." A silence. Then, "Do not go back there again." Another pause. Some walls remember. He walks on, and you stand there, frozen, because for the first time in years, you saw him afraid. Not angry, not strict, afraid. That night, you sprinkle salt by your door, burn incense, sleep with one hand on your chest, and the other on the wooden amulet beneath your pillow. But sleep doesn't come, because now you know the truth. The house is not empty. It never was. The sun is still here, waiting and watching, and he does not wear sandals.
Chapter 7. The Ceremony of Silence. There are ceremonies for everything in this house. For the first bloom, for the first snow, for a new scroll, for a returning letter. But this one, this ceremony, has no name. You're not told what it is, only that it will happen tonight, and that you must prepare the chaji chamber. You bow, and you do, because in a house like this, silence is more sacred than instruction. The tatami is scrubbed until your knuckles bleed. The hearth is stoked low to warm the corner where breath always gathers. The charcoal is measured, not too thick, not too fast burning. Even the chawan, the tea bowl, must be perfect, unchipped, uncracked, old but not faded. It must look like it remembers, because tonight someone will bow over it and try to remember why he ever mattered. When you finish the cleaning, you light one candle, only one. The room flickers. Shadows stretch like regrets along the paper walls. And then you wait. You kneel in the outer hall. You hear the wind moving through the bamboo. And finally, the soft scuff of sandals. Not loud, measured, heavy. The master enters alone. No steward, no guard, not even the wife. Just him. And his sword, still sheathed, still polished by your own hands this morning. He kneels. His body moves like it always has, deliberate, silent, inhuman. But his hands, they tremble, slightly. The kind of tremble no one else would see, but you have seen too much, and you know. This is not a tea ceremony. This is a farewell. You begin. The movements are rehearsed. Pour the water, wipe the rim, turn the bowl. But something is wrong in the air. It's too heavy, too thick, like breathing through wet cloth. He doesn't speak. He only watches. You place the bowl before him, bow, then retreat 3 steps. He lifts it. The tea is green, bitter, alive, but his face does not change. He drinks, then sets it down, and the silence that follows is longer than it should be. You lower your gaze, and then he speaks. Do you know why we do this? His voice is not tired, not angry, just small. You do not reply. To remember that some things must end quietly. He reaches into his sleeve, pulls out a folded letter, tied in red cord, sets it beside the bowl. You will give this to my son if I don't return. You bow, deeper than ever before. If he refuses to read it, he adds, then burn it. No one else must see. You nod once. And, if I am forgotten, a pause. Do not remind them. You stay bowed as he stands. His sword whispers against the mat. He leaves the room with one final step, lighter than when he entered. You remain kneeling long after the candle has guttered, after the tea has gone cold, after the letter has begun to tremble in your fingers. Later, when the others are asleep, you take the letter and hide it. Not with the others, not beneath the floorboard. You bury it in the garden, under the plum tree, with your sandals off, out of respect and fear. Because this is not a letter for eyes. This is a letter for silence. You do not sleep. In the morning, the master is gone. The steward says he left before dawn, to Kyoto, to speak with men who do not drink tea with both hands. The lady says nothing. She pours sake and sings. Hana cleans the same floor 3 times. The walls seem thinner now, as if they too are waiting. And the room where the ceremony happened, it stays locked.
The tea bowl remains unwashed, and the silence still sits in the corner, waiting to be finished.
Chapter 8. Ink and Ashes. 3 days pass. No word. No letter. No messenger. No horse returning down the gravel path. The master is gone, and the house, it holds its breath like a widow in denial. The servants walk more softly. The steward watches more closely, and the lady, she begins to hum again. That same old tune, the one with no melody, the one that sounds like something she heard as a child before someone died. On the 4th day, the steward calls you. He stands in the master's study, a long scroll unrolled before him, the ink not yet dry. "You will write," he says. You bow. He hands you the brush. The old one, horsehair, polished wood worn smooth by the master's grip. You hold it like a weapon, because today that's what it is. He reads aloud slowly, deliberately, each sentence like a death knell wrapped in etiquette. To Lord Saigo of Kyoto, I write with regret that matters have escalated beyond harmony. The words are not yours. They are barely his. They belong to the master, to the hierarchy, to the ghost of politics that never left the room after the last guest did. The ink begins to dry on your knuckles. You do not stop. You have been trained for this. But your hands shake. Because the letter, it's not just a message. It's a surrender, a last rite, a man writing himself out of memory. You finish the letter, sign it, seal it with the family crest. Then, as you move to place it into the lacquered box, the steward stops you. One more. You bow again. This one is not dictated. He sets it before you. Blank paper. Write for him, he says. A whisper. Not a command. An offering. Your throat tightens. Your hands hover over the page. And you begin. To the boy who inherits nothing but silence, know that I was not always like this. I was once warm, once laughed, once held you above my head like you were weightless. But the world doesn't keep such men alive. Not in my position, not with my name. I chose obedience over softness. I chose order over mercy. And it cost me the only face I wished to remember. If you read this, do not become me. But if you must, then know what you carry is not legacy. It is burden, and fire, and ash. You sign his name. Your brush does not falter, because you have written enough letters for ghosts to know how. You hand it over. The steward does not speak. He bows, a little too deeply for a man of his age and position. You do not ask where the letters will go. You already know. That night, you dream of ink. It runs down your arms, pools at your feet, forms characters you do not understand. When you wake, your hands are stained, but there's no ink in the room, only ash, fine gray ash, in the corner, just beneath the altar, where no candle has burned in days. You clean it silently, The wind outside is picking up. The season is turning. The trees bend. The koi hide deeper in the pond. The house is beginning to rot in its silence. And yet, you write. You copy old scrolls, maintain the master's ledgers, draft a receipt for a shipment that will never arrive. Because this is how memory survives here, through records no one reads, through ink that dries before it's understood. By the seventh day, the steward falls ill. His breath smells of iron, his skin of paper. He stops speaking, and the lady smiles more, not because she is happy, but because the play is going exactly as written. You walk the garden alone. The plum tree is bare now, the earth beneath it dry, but something still pulses under your feet. The letter, the one he gave you, still buried, still waiting, still unspoken. You wonder what it says. You wonder what it knows. You wonder what part of you would die if you ever read it, and what part might survive if you don't. That night, you light incense. You sharpen the brush, and you begin a new scroll. This one is not for the master, not for the house, not for the shogun. This one is for you. A record, a reckoning, a whisper committed to ink. And when the fire comes, because you know it will, at least something will remain, even if it's only ash.
Chapter 9. Autumn Leaves, Winter Bones. Autumn arrives like a thief. Not all at once. It begins with the breath you see in the morning air, the brittle crackle beneath your steps, the sound of dry silk robes brushing dead leaves. And the house starts to cough. Not literally, not yet, but something inside it wheezes. The beams creak differently. The tea turns bitter quicker. Even the tatami mats seem to sigh when you kneel. Death is coming, but not the obvious kind. The slow one, the one that eats from within. You are sent to the storehouse, alone, to retrieve the winter bedding. This should be uneventful, but as you unlatch the doors, you notice the smell. Not mold, not rice, not wood, but something sharper, like old blood on lacquer. You push the doors wide. The dust stirs like it remembers you. Inside, it's cold, darker than it should be, even in daylight. You step in. The bedding is where it always is, wrapped, tied, waiting. But something catches your eye. A figure, behind the stacked crates. You freeze. Call softly. Is someone there? No reply. Just breath. Yours. Too loud. You move forward. One step. Then another. You round the corner. And there is no one. Only sandals. Too small. Worn. Children's. Next to them, a strip of paper. Calligraphy. You pick it up. Ink faded, but readable. 5 words. We do not bury shame. Your fingers tighten. You glance back toward the doorway. No one. But the wind outside has stilled, as if waiting to see what you'll do. You return the paper gently, place the sandals beside it, and back away. Because some memories are not yours to disturb. That night, the steward dies. Not loudly, not dramatically. He simply stops breathing, on his mat, with his ledger still open. No one cries. The servants line up, bow, then return to their duties. Only you stay longer. You kneel by his body, fold his hands, close his eyes. You whisper the old phrase, "Your debt has ended, walk lightly." Then you see it. In his sleeve, a strip of parchment, old, with handwriting not his own. It reads, "She knows. Do not trust the silence. Burn the letter if he dies." Your stomach turns. He knew. About the master, about her, about everything. You burn the note that night, alone, in the rear garden, where no one watches. You feel the smoke pass through your hands like apology. The next morning, a messenger arrives, horse foaming, eyes wild. He brings no scroll, only a phrase spoken once, as if it's already old. There was no arrival in Kyoto, no record of your master. No one saw him leave the outer gates. The lady receives the message with a bowed head, then turns, smiles, faintly, and says, "Prepare mourning clothes. He will not return." You watch her walk away. She doesn't stumble. She doesn't look back. And for the first time, you see her clearly. A woman with no husband, no son, no shame. Only power, wrapped in silk, perfumed in grief. And it terrifies you. That night, you return to the plum tree. Dig quietly. You reach the letter, still sealed, still untouched. But the ribbon is damp, rotting, as if time wants it opened. You sit in the dirt, unwrap it, and read. But there are no instructions, no last words, no confession, just a haiku. "I knew the fire would come, but still I left the door wide. Ash remembers everything." You weep, not loudly, just enough for the tree to hear. And the house creaks, like bones under snow, like something bracing for winter, like something trying very, very hard not to die.
Chapter X, The Ladies' Game. She starts wearing red again. Not the loud kind, the subtle one. The inner layer of her junihitoe, barely visible beneath the indigo silk. The embroidery of phoenixes near her sleeves. The red lacquer comb tucked just behind her ear. It's the color of danger in this house. You've seen it before. Once, on the night before the master left. Once, when the steward was found breathless. And now, she wears it daily. As if she's mourning not a man, but a version of herself she no longer needs. You were summoned to her quarters. This is rare. You bathe, scrub the ink from your nails, shave carefully as if entering a shrine. Because to her, you are not a servant. You are a piece in her game. And today, she is ready to move you. The room smells of plum wine. Too sweet, too much. She sits behind the screen, silhouetted. The shape of her hand holds a brush, but no paper lies beneath it. "Tell me," she says, voice light as smoke, "do you still polish blades?" You bow low. "Yes, Okusama." A pause. "Even those not meant to be used?" You nod, because all blades are meant to be used, eventually. She hums. It sounds like approval, but you've learned never to trust that sound. "I have a letter," she says. "I want you to deliver it." You remain bowed. "It must not pass through the steward's registry." You lift your eyes. "The steward is dead, Okusama."
She sighs, as if inconvenienced. Then be sure no one else sees. She slides the letter forward, under the screen. You do not touch it. Not yet. Where does it go, Okusama? To the man in the South District. He owns the ink shop. He will understand. You nod. Finally, you take it. The paper is thick, too formal for casual messages, too light for death. If he asks you anything, she adds, say nothing, just leave. And if someone intercepts me, she turns her head slightly, her silhouette darkens. Then you will learn why silence is stronger than swords. You bow again and leave. The streets of Edo are loud with autumn rot. Roofs drip, children shout, vendors bark their last sales before the cold arrives. But you walk quickly, through alleys, behind fish stalls, past lanterns carved with family crests you've never spoken aloud. You find the ink shop. It is closed. You knock once, then twice, the old signal. It opens, not by hand, by rope, as if someone was already watching. You enter. The man is older than the dust, eyes like river stones, teeth like they've forgotten how to chew. He takes the letter, says nothing, does not bow, does not thank, just disappears, as if the paper ate him. You turn. You walk home, but halfway there you hear it, footsteps, not behind, ahead, waiting. You pause, and then from the shadows, a boy, thin, shoeless, holding something in his hand. He walks up to you, offers it, a strip of paper. You open it. 4 words. Not hers. Someone else. She moves before spring. No seal, no signature, but the handwriting, you know it. The master, alive, watching, or worse, betrayed. You burn the note in the nearest brazier. You speak no name, not hers, not his, because the fire is listening, and in this house, even ashes are spies. When you return, she is waiting, sitting in the courtyard, under the bare plum tree. She sips sake, alone, without music, without fear. She does not ask what happened. She only says, I once believed in loyalty, but belief is a disease, one I've since cured. She smiles, not at you, at the sky, at something that used to live in her. You'll stay, won't you? She asks softly, even when the blood dries. You do not answer, because in that moment, you understand the truth. This house is no longer a house. It is a board, and she is the only one still playing.
Chapter 11. The Weight of Her Hairpin. There is a silence more dangerous than any scream. You hear it in the way the wind avoids her chambers now. You feel it in the wood beneath your feet, how it doesn't groan anymore, but holds tension like a bowstring. It begins with the hairpin. A gift, perhaps, or a relic. Long, black lacquer tipped with silver sakura petals. Not sharp, but heavy. She wears it differently now. Not tucked delicately behind her ear. Not as ornament, but as weapon. You see her use it for the first time on the 12th night of winter. The air bites at your sleeves. The floorboards are brittle with frost. You hear the sound. A slap. Then silence. Then a low thump, like a body accepting gravity. You do not move. You are not supposed to hear this. But your feet move anyway. To the hall, past the closed door of her chamber. You kneel beside the screen. Breathe in silence. Then a voice. Clean this. Not a scream, not a cry. Just 2 words. So cold you can feel them crack through the paper walls. You wait until the door slides open. She steps out. Her robe is unwrinkled, her hair immaculate, but the hairpin is gone. Her eyes brush past you. It was necessary, she says. You do not ask who. You do not ask why. You step inside, and you see the steward's nephew, the one who had begun keeping ledgers, lying crumpled by the screen. No blood, but the bruise on his neck is shaped like a petal. You clean. You wrap the body. You carry it out under moonlight, to the back path near the bamboo grove. The old grave mound welcomes it. You bury him beside the others. No stone, no incense, just dirt. The bamboo does not whisper. Even it is afraid. The next morning she prays at the family shrine, alone, unaccompanied. You kneel bye-bye, not by order, by instinct. She lights incense, offers no words, then turns to you. The house must be lightened before spring. You bow. How many remain? You don't ask what she means. You know. Servants, family, witnesses. 9, you answer. She looks pleased. Then by the blossom will be 5. The next days bleed together. One servant gone to her family. Another falls ill and is sent away. A third disappears before dawn, her futon still warm. No one asks questions. No one knocks on doors. No one leaves notes. They just vanish. And each day she smiles more, not broadly, but deeply, like someone peeling fruit with her tongue. You polish the blade again, the master's katana, still in the alcove, still wrapped, still watching. Its edge reflects no light, only your expression, tired, thin, eroding. You consider it, just for a second, lifting it, turning it, not in rebellion, not in madness, but in curiosity. What would it feel like to balance something true again, something heavier than words? That night she calls you again, to the garden. The plum tree has begun to bud, too early. She stands beneath it barefoot, holding the hairpin in her palm. Do you know the story of Lady Yasuko? She asks. You shake your head. She killed 3 men with a mirror and a hairpin, she says. She lifts the pen, holds it against the starlight. Power, she says, has no proper shape. It takes what is left behind. Then she places it in your hand. It's heavier than it looks, almost warm. If I disappear, she says quietly, burn the house. Not with fire, with memory. She walks away, barefoot, unbothered by cold, unburdened by guilt. And you hold the pen, not a gift, a task. And the weight of it is not in grams. It's in names, unspoken, unwritten, unburied.
Chapter 12. The Return Without Footsteps. He does not knock. He does not call ahead. He does not leave footprints in the snow. And yet, he is in the courtyard. Before dawn. Before memory.
the master, or something that wears his shape. You are the first to see him, because you sleep lightly now, because you do not truly sleep at all. You light no lantern, you make no sound. You simply step barefoot onto the cold veranda and bow so low your knees sting. He doesn't speak, doesn't gesture, doesn't enter. He simply waits, like a shadow that remembered how to breathe. He looks older, not in years, in weight. His shoulders don't slump, but you can see the gravity clinging to his robe. His eyes are not dim. They are clean, as if something has been burned away. The others wake slowly. The house stirs like a widow startled by a heartbeat. Voices echo softly. Doors slide open like they forgot how to close. But no one dares approach him. Not yet. Not even her. The lady appears last. She is dressed in full mourning black, not a strand of hair out of place. They stare at each other for a moment so long you wonder if time has stopped to listen. Then he bows, only slightly. She doesn't bow at all, just says, "You were supposed to be dead." He nods. "I was." He does not explain. He enters the house, and the house does not resist. He passes the family shrine, the empty scrolls, the cracked incense bowl. He doesn't pause, just walks through it like it was smoke. The steward's room is sealed, the ledgers untouched, the ink dry. He opens the sliding door, takes a single page, closes it again. No ceremony, just purpose. You were called to his chamber an hour later. You kneel, head low, your mouth dry with every question you are not allowed to ask. He pours sake, not for himself, for you. Drink. You do. It burns, like confession. How many remain, he asks. You do not lie. 5, not counting me. He nods slowly. Then you've done well. He pours again, this time for himself. But he does not drink it, just holds it, like a memory. There was a war, he says, not with swords, not with men. A war of choices, of names, of things not written. You say nothing. He smiles faintly, not kindly, just truthfully. The woman who runs this house, he continues, she is not evil, but she is finished. Like a blade sharpened one too many times, beautiful but brittle. You feel the words land inside you, like pebbles dropped in a well. Then he does something unexpected. He bows to you, not deeply, but with intent. When I leave again, you must not follow. And if she does not let me go, you must choose the house or the silence. You return to your room.
the sake still in your throat, the command still in your blood. You sit, and for the first time in weeks, you write. Not a letter, not a scroll, not an order. Just your name, and beside it, two symbols. One for loyalty, one for loss. You stare at them until the candle burns out. That night, the wind howls. Not like weather, like warning. You do not sleep. And in the courtyard, the master stands, still, as if waiting for the house to choose what it will become.
Chapter 13. The Day Without Shadows. The day arrives with no wind, no bird song, no shadows. The sun is high, but nothing casts a line. The trees stand still, the koi float motionless. Even the dust in the halls refuses to rise. This is not weather, this is omen. The master dresses in traveling robes, dark, plain, without crest. He wears no sword, only silence. The lady watches from the veranda, her hands folded, her face painted as for a funeral. But whose? You are told to prepare tea. No ceremony, just tea. For 3. The third cup remains untouched. You place it in front of the empty seat. They sit across from each other, knees barely apart, but worlds between them. She speaks first. You waited too long. He replies without anger. You acted too soon. You never intended to return. You never intended to wait. Their voices are not raised, but every word lands like a falling banner. Do you know how many I've buried? She asks. All of them, he answers. A pause. Even me. You pour more tea. Your hands shake, just enough to notice. She sees it. So does he. But neither comments, because this is not about you. And yet, everything will come down to you. She places something on the table, the hairpin, cleaned, polished, balanced between them. One final question, she says. Why come back at all? He leans forward, takes the pen, holds it as one would hold a dying bird. To give it back. He places it before her, and stands. No goodbye, no bow, no final glance. He walks out of the room, past the plum tree, now in full bloom, though it's the wrong season. Past the shrine, past the sandals by the garden door. You wait for her to call out, to scream, to command, to kill. But she doesn't. She stays seated, one hand still resting near the hairpin. Hours pass. She does not rise, not to eat, not to speak, not to breathe. You check once, twice. The third time she is still, not asleep, gone. Eyes open, face calm, the faint trace of a smile. As if the game finally ended and she was the last one to see the board. You burn no incense. You build no pyre. You wrap her in her robes and place the pin on her chest. You do not bury her near the others. You bury her beneath the plum tree. And as the first shovel of earth falls, the shadow of the house finally returns. Long, crooked, soft. The master never comes back, but his sandals remain at the gate. And each day you clean them, polish them, wait. Because now the house belongs to no one, Only the silence, and you serve it faithfully. Chapter 14. The Servant Who Was Never Named. They never asked your name. Not once. Not when you arrived, soaking wet, face bruised, barely speaking. Not when they took you in to sweep ashes, to carry bodies, to write their letters. Not when you bled in silence and bowed with more loyalty than the sons who shared their blood. You were not disrespected. You were ignored. And somehow that made it worse. Because names are anchors. Without one, you drift. The house is yours now, not in name, not in title, but in truth. You tend to the koi, you clean the blades, you rewrite old scrolls with new ink no one will read. And still, no one asks, who are you? Because by now, even you don't remember. You catch yourself listening to the way the floor creaks under your step, as if it might whisper back a syllable, the syllable that once belonged to you. But all it gives is the echo of feet that no longer walk these halls. Sometimes the neighbors send rice. A widow places plum wine at the gate. A boy leaves lotus flowers near the shrine and never speaks when you bow. The world continues, but it bends around this place, like a stream refusing to flood sacred ground. One day, a wandering monk appears. He walks with cracked sandals, a bell that doesn't ring, and eyes that have seen war without needing to describe it. You offer him tea. He accepts without thanks. He drinks slowly, then glances around the house. I knew a man here, he says. Wore his brief like armor. Loved in silence. Died in pieces. You say nothing, because you've heard this story before, every time you look at the master's sword. The monk places something on the mat, a paper charm, old, folded, tied with red twine. He leaves it without explanation. You bow. He leaves, and the wind sighs behind him. That night you open the charm. Inside, a name. One you don't recognize. But beneath it, in smaller strokes, faint and delicate, your own. Not shouted, not even written with certainty, just offered, like a question you're allowed to answer. For hours you stare at it. Then, with trembling brush, you copy it onto your own palm. Not permanent, not loud, but real. And for the first time in years, the walls seem to breathe easier. The next morning, you rise before the sun. You wash your face in the frozen stream. You sharpen the master's blade, but do not draw it. You light incense for no one in particular. And you whisper your name aloud. Once, softly, to the garden, to the ghosts, to yourself. No one replies, but the sky, for once, is kind. The plum blossoms fall without sound, and you do not flinch, because now, at last, you belong. Chapter 15. Ash Without Smoke. Spring comes too gently for a house like this. You don't notice it at first. Just a slow drip of thawed water from the roof tiles. A single cricket under the floorboards. Then, the plum blossoms. Not blooming, falling. Without cause, without storm, without anyone to watch. Like a breath you didn't know you were holding. The house does not creak anymore. It sighs. You've stopped expecting visitors. The rice is still delivered. Letters sometimes arrive, though none are addressed by name. You read them anyway, even the blank ones, especially the blank ones, because silence has become a language, and you've learned to hear between its syllables. The master's sword remains wrapped, but some mornings you unwrap it, just to clean, to feel its weight. You've stopped fearing it. Now it feels more like a mirror than a blade. You catch your reflection sometimes, not the face, but the posture, bent, balanced, waiting. You begin writing again, not orders, not records, but stories, of people who never existed, of people who did, but no one remembers. You sign none of them. You leave them tucked inside hollow walls, between tatami layers, under floorboards. The house becomes your archive, a shrine to names never spoken aloud. And then, one evening, there is smoke, but no fire. Just a column, thin, fragrant, rising from the back shrine. You follow it, barefoot, because this is not a danger. It's an invitation. The shrine door is open. Inside, the lady's comb rests on the altar. Beside it, the hairpin, and under both, a scroll you've never seen. You unfold it with fingers that do not shake. It reads, "The blade was not yours. The silence was. Now, so is the story. There is no name, no seal, but you recognize the brushwork, hers. You sit there until dawn, not in prayer, not in grief, in stillness, like a candle that refuses to burn, but holds warmth anyway. The house is ready now, not for guests, not for ghosts, but for departure. You rise, wrap the comb and the pen, bury them under the plum tree, not as relics, as endings. You leave the front gate open. You leave the sandals at the threshold. You leave the name, yours, carved softly into the step, where no one will see it, but the sun. Then, barefoot, you walk into the world, not as a servant, not as a shadow, but as someone who once lived in a house where every name was a secret, every silence a blade, and every breath a story waiting to be remembered.